What's up YouTube? Magnus here, back with another video for you guys. Today I'm going to show you how to make some armor, specifically for your elbows. We're starting right now. I put all the patterns and artwork from all my projects up on my Etsy store. You can click on the link somewhere up here and take a look at that if you want. This pattern has been updated with the art I draw in this video. So we just cut the pattern out and we get to tracing. Once we've traced it all, we magically create two. We're cutting through some pretty heavy leather, so make sure you strop your blades. Even if they're straight out of the package, it's always good to strop your blades for heavy leather. Oh, there's that trick again. I love that. The ability to snap your fingers and create a second part for your pattern is kind of a different level. I don't bevel where the joint is on the two halves of the elbow, because that's where it joins and you want as much leather there as possible. No reason to bevel it. These you obviously want to bevel all the way around. Use a little wax to help you with your hole punching, especially if you're punching as many holes as I am now. Now, oh, I love that. It's such a good skill. When I'm making armor, it's usually for film or people involved in the Society for Creative Anachronism, which I'm involved in. So this pattern is specifically with that in mind, but you can obviously, damn, there it is again. You can obviously modify this pattern for your needs, for costumes, live action roleplay, cosplay, whatever. Now this is the center seam piece that holds the two halves of your elbow together. A key part of this piece is that it needs to be longer overall from hole to hole than the holes on the elbow halves. That's because of the curve. So when you're wrapping a piece of leather around the outside of an already curved piece of leather, you can't line up the holes the same. So you'll see here, you can't possibly punch those holes properly. They won't line up because I've made them wider at the most curved part of this joint. So we do a couple 4-hole punches and then the singles. And that's because the distance between the holes does change near the center of the join piece in order for it to wrap around the edge properly. This is an example of what would happen if you spaced the holes exactly the same on the join piece and the elbow half. See how short it is? That's no good. So you have to make up that distance somewhere. The best place to do that is where it curves the most on your piece. So there you go. So this one's going to wrap all the way around perfectly. You can see how the spacing obviously changes in the middle. I kind of winged it, but it worked out. So there's no chance whatsoever that I made the other piece first, realized my mistake, and then decided to use it as a teaching tool. I figured you guys would want some artwork as well, or at least some of you would, so I did up a little piece for the elbow. It's on the pattern. You can get it from my Etsy store, as I was talking about before. Let's just bomb through this really quickly. Quick little sketch, really simple. That looks pretty good. Now it's time to carve it. We are going to, once again, bomb through this. I've got lots of videos on more detailed leather carving with more instruction. Cut it quick. Get our beveler out. Bomb around the edge. Bevel everything. Once you've beveled everything, background it if you want to background it. Once we've got all the backgrounding out of the way, we can paint with some dyes to add contrast. I decided to use a cordovan dye, and really because I'm waxing this elbow, it turned out almost black, so it was kind of pointless. I could have just used black, I guess. Be careful not to get your dye on parts of your project that you don't want to dye, or you're going to have to break out your acrylic paints and touch it up. Now, unlike most of my leather carvings where I will hit it with a resist and then put a gel antique on it, I'm not going to do that here, because whenever I put a resist on and wax a piece, there's always a spot where somehow the wax gets past the resist and makes it look kind of like garbage. So maybe I could just layer on the resist a lot more, but it just never seems to work out, and I didn't want to play around this time. Feel free to try yourself, but I would use a lot of resist coats before you put anything in the wax. Now we're just throwing some wax on the edges before we burnish it and smooth them out. There's lots of hand tools you can use for burnishing. I'll show you a few examples here, but I use a burnishing wheel machine, so I haven't used this one in a while. I really like that one. This one's great for beginners. It's got lots of options. You can see it slicking away here, and then you can use the straight to like clean it up a little bit if you want. Or you can just take it all over to this thing and fly through the process pretty quick. Tandy Leather sells one now. This is my own made-up one from a supplier in the UK that sent me the burnishing piece itself. That made pretty short work of all the edges. And now it's going to be time to start stitching everything together. Just make sure you buff off the excess wax on the top before you get going. But once that's all done, we can break out the thread. I used white waxed thread for this, and waxed thread is great because it really holds its tension, keeping your stitches tight. Really easy on the top plate parts. We're just going to loop back and forth all the way through and along, all the way around the whole piece, and then go all the way around the whole piece again. This isn't a saddle stitch of any kind. This piece doesn't need to be ridiculously fastened down, and all that stitching is going to be just fine. So we're just going to go all the way around and knot it off at the end. I should have mentioned this before. I'm not a huge fan of painting leather, but if you're going to paint it, make sure you paint it before you wax it. Well, once we get one side done, you probably know what time it is. Exactly. Man, that's so handy. So this is the part that needs to be the most secure, obviously. So I'm running a saddle stitch down the edge. I am knotting it, not on every stitch, but every so often. And by knotting it, I just mean like one loop over, just like this. So we're looping it through, and that just gives it a little bit more tension, just like as if you were doing up your shoes. It's just the first loop. So now we're going to bomb all the way down to the other end, alternating needles, and once we get to the other end, we're going to backstitch just a little bit and tie everything off. It's always good to backstitch at the end. Refon it a little bit, make sure it's nice and tight, and then we're going to move on to attaching to the other side. So we're stitching all the way down to the other end, and then where it joins at the end, where the two sides of your elbow join, we're going to stitch through both sides and bring the ends together. Now, I should have probably started like that at this other end, but I went back and did it later. You'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll be able to incorporate it into your elbows when you're doing it. So this is where that whole cinch together comes in. So I've put it through, but not through both pieces. I've tucked it between, and then back through, but not through both pieces. And that'll bring your very end join together. There you go. See how snug that is? And now I do that a couple of times, and then I tie it off. I also should have done that at the beginning of this join, but I go back and do it afterwards to make up for it. So here I am just winging it at the other end. I've just got a little piece of extra thread that I'm going to use. I'm going to put it through, loop it around through both sides a couple times, going between the center seam piece and the two elbow halves until I think it's tight enough, and then I'll knot it off. Here I'm just rounding off those points. Nobody wants to get poked by them. Bevel it, dye it the same color, and then everything's perfect. I'll probably change the pattern so that's spot on, so we don't have to worry about doing that at this point in the build. I like my wax around 250 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's like 120 degrees Celsius or so. I could be a little off. Please be careful when using wax. That's really hot, and I have melted the skin off my arm before. I use a giant turkey roaster. It works amazing. Make sure you pay attention to ventilation and the temperature. Because it's so hot, most of the wax that is on the surface of your piece, when you pull it, will just soak right in. But wipe off any excess so it doesn't leave a residue on top. I've had these really old fridge shelves forever, and it's perfect for elbows and forming other pieces into it. I put my gorgets in there as well. You can just bend it and leave it. Let it cool off. Now I really like this color, but it's certainly going to darken up a lot as it cools. Now we're going to quickly make some 1/2-inch strapping for the elbow. Just using some 6-ounce that I had lying around. So we'll just bomb through this, it's all in the pattern. Now when I'm using my rivets, I'm using peening rivets. If you want to use rapid rivets, go ahead. I put peening rivets on all armor that's going to see some kind of combat. If you're doing something for costume, cosplay, live action roleplay, whatever it is, you don't have to use these rivets. It's a little overkill. Learning how to peen these rivets can be a bit time consuming. You can put some masking tape on top, right over the rivet and the washer, to hold it in place while you're learning how to get the hang of it. I've gotten to the point where I don't need to use the masking tape anymore, which is great because it's a bit of a pain in the butt and it slows me down. Make sure you hit that like button if you're enjoying the video. It really helps the channel out. If you have some time, maybe check out my Patreon page, where some of the same artwork and patterns that I sell on my Etsy store also get posted. Well, that's about it, everybody. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for future videos. Hit that notification button to make sure you don't miss any of my content. And until next time, keep on being creative in whatever it is you do.